You know, success stories that we're seeing right now with Palworld, it just makes me feel better about the future of the video game industry when stuff like this happens. You know, last year we saw Larian's rise to the top of the video game industry with the success with Baldur's Gate 3. The year before that, it was Elden Ring from Software. And now it definitely feels like Pocket Pair is going to be experiencing that success here with Palworld. It's a game that is not necessarily unique. It definitely borrows many elements from popular experiences from Elden Ring to Ark to Rust to Pokemon. And it carries those influences. It's very clear. It's obvious. It's not like they're trying to hide it. But that has created a lot of controversy. It has been met to accusations of being lazy, asset store-bought, AI-generated, blatant plagiarism, stealing, ripoff. It just so many different things have been said about this game, and it is the next big video game controversy. It is real time. It's happening all over social media. Thousands of posts, many artists absolutely upset with the game's success. But to get things started, it is worth mentioning that, yeah, right now from the overall gaming community, it's overwhelmingly positive. 37,000 reviews, 93% of them are positive. It is an early access game, but it has tons of content within it. It's only $27 on Steam, which I actually think is a great deal considering the content that I have played myself. There's just so many different elements to this experience. It has that survival. You definitely have to worry about your health and stuff like that, you know, food and such. There's mounts, there's exploration, there's building. You can build structures. Want to build a pyramid, put an army of pals on the job. Production, you can make use of pals and their skills to make fire, generate electricity, and so on. There's farming, factories and automation, dungeon exploration, breeding and genetics, poaching and crime, multiplayer, and there are boss fights. I've only done one of the boss fights, I think maybe one or two, and it was very intense and it was a lot of fun. And that's the big thing about Palworld that I think it nails. It is that fun factor. Immediately once you come into this new world, you start gaining the resources, you start building things up, you start finding and, you know, throwing the balls and whatever they're called. You start getting the pals and then you start using them. You get some powerful ones, then you go after some of the boss. It's a gameplay loop that works, and that is what matters most. I think a lot of gaming development studios don't understand this, and that is kind of why I do feel like there's so much anger about this experience, and also some frustration directed at Nintendo with what they've done with Pokemon the last 20 or so years. And I think a lot of the reaction that people are having with Palworld is just upset with how Pokemon just has not evolved enough. And I think that kind of makes sense. The reason why it hasn't evolved is just because there's no reason for it. Game Freak and Nintendo feel comfortable. They feel comfortable with the fact that there's going to be controversy with the releases and nothing's going to happen because the game's still going to go on to sell 20 to 30 million copies. We saw that in the last number of releases. There's been so many endless videos and people mocking these games online, and it just doesn't, there's no consequences. And ultimately that is why I think there's so much satisfaction with a game like Palworld existing in the first place. But like I said, massive success story so far. Sold over 4 million copies in only about 3 days. This is coming from the official count. Momentum has increased since yesterday with the latest sales at 86,000 units per hour. That's just insane. VGC article acknowledging that Palworld hits more concurrent Steam players than Cyberpunk and Elden Ring. Just put that into perspective when you imagine the huge marketing campaigns that both of those games had. Cyberpunk more than Elden Ring, of course, but to beat out those games at launch, it's just crazy in my opinion. And then again, just comparing right now, got this stupid ad in the way, but 913,000 players. I think it's like 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time right now. That's just huge. And then it peaked earlier today at 1.2 million. I would not be surprised to see this be broken again tomorrow. Like I said, right now the momentum with this game is only increasing as word of mouth goes around. Unfortunately, though, there is a lot of controversy. Many of the points that I made on earlier about this video, the lazy, plagiarism, all the accusations, this is what's happening. Palworld embroiled in AI and Pokemon plagiarism controversy. Palworld by Japanese studio Pocket Pair released into early access, blah, 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 you know that. The huge launch exposure inevitably reignited discourse that has followed Palworld since its announcement around its character designs' apparent similarities to Pokemon. And I do think people need to understand similarities doesn't mean anything. And that's why I think my immediate reaction was that Nintendo, being how litigious they are, they'd probably take legal action against Palworld, but that has not happened yet. And I think it is very interesting because this game is very clearly taking that inspiration, and they're also just saying at the same time, you know, it's a parody. It is a satire of Pokemon with its character designs, and there's not much Nintendo can do about that, I think. And this actually was brought up by a lawyer's perspective. We'll talk about that a little later on this video as we go through this. But although the gameplay of Palworld is closer to survival games like Ark and Rust than Game Freak's series, I pointed that out, many social media users have noted the obvious influences its character designs have taken from the Nintendo series. The situation is further muddled in the eyes of some of Pocket Pair's historical relationship with generative AI tools. Now, the big thing is with AI, we've seen a lot of video game companies the last couple of weeks getting in trouble with this. Electronic Arts got in trouble with that with some of the marketing for Apex Legends. Wizards of the Coast with Magic the Gathering and some of the background artwork they did for some of the cards they were showing off. And this is the big thing. The CEO of Pocket Pair has a massive history with AI. He has talked about it and they have used it. As noted by an X by this user, one of their previous titles was AI Art Imposter, a game which literally utilizes an AI image generator as its core mechanic. And here it is. This is what they're referring to. Among many artists and game developers in the industry who right now are becoming more and more outraged and scared for the future that their jobs will be taken away by AI-generated stuff like this, this is, again, the controversy is being ignited by stuff like this. And that's why there's so much rage at the success of Palworld coming from so many users on social media, specifically a lot of artists. Now, it does continue. The user also highlighted multiple historical X posts by Pocket Pair's CEO, Takuro Mizobi, in which he appeared to praise the potential of AI image generators for content creation. And I do think we have a couple of other examples. These are some tweets that he made. He talks about the use of AI for monster designs. This is what has gotten him in trouble, and there's so many different posts highlighting these tweets. He said in November of 2022, if you pass it through the filter of AI, the image is often not of a specific thing, so maybe the copyright issue will be resolved. I was surprised to see that the world is actually moving in that direction. In about 30 years, the general public's perception of copyright may have changed considerably. Then we have another tweet, and this one specifically is what has caught in a lot of people's, made their eyebrows being raised. The AI has evolved so much that I can no longer tell which one is a Pokemon. Left Pokemon, like monster generated by AI, right, real Pokemon. And then he shows some pictures comparing the two. And yeah, a big no-no in the eyes of many individuals on social media. And before we do continue, I think it really is important to hit on that AI accusation that is being alleged here against Pocket Pair and Palworld, because specifically this developer has already talked about this. Recently, they talked about the development history of this game, and they talked about how they worked on 100 plus PALs and they were all originally designed. They mentioned that it took a month to make one PAL, just the 3D model. This was early on, and I think they streamlined the process as the development went on, and they specifically go into how the whole process of it. So the AI accusation, there's just no proof of it at all. And specifically on the CEO's tweets, one of those tweets we just talked about a second ago, it is removing important context, as this Twitter user actually brings up, saying that, don't believe the lies that Palworld is using AI generated art. Liars are claiming that Palworld used AI art based on posts made by their CEO. Specifically, that Pokemon post I just brought up a second ago, it actually removed the context that the CEO was responding to BuzzFeed using AI to create Fakemon, not Pocket Pair staff. So this wasn't even something he was dabbling with. He saw it on social media, he commented on it, and that context has not been brought up. And I think that is important in discussions that we're having surrounding this game and the controversy associated with AI in Palworld. And these are some of the similarities that people have found so far with Pokemon and Palworld, and it's a lot, as you can see. This individual saying, can't find the OP of this compilation, but the only thing crazier than this extent of plagiarism is dudes angrily defending it because the game is fun. There are so many fun games that aren't plagiarized, most of them in fact. And yeah, it's a lot. They all look very similar. But again, inspiration versus stealing. There is no proof that anything has been stolen. Also adding this in after recording, but it is worth mentioning, some of these images, some of these comparisons, they look nothing alike, and it really is reaching. And then, as I know people are going to comment below, but yeah, Pokemon, Dragon Quest, this is a thing that's been going on for years, and it definitely does feel like it is a bit of a double standard with some of the comparisons, some of the complaints that some individuals are making online about the similarity between Pokemon's design and Palworld's. There is no proof that anything has been AI generated. There is no proof that any of these, like, there's nothing here. The plagiarism, what is that? I mean, there's clear inspiration and satire, but that's not something that Nintendo, Game Freak, or anybody can do anything about. It does continue. We have more people sharing some other similarities. I am the exact opposite of a Nintendo stand, but seeing Palworld make tens of millions of dollars off of the most blatantly creative, bankrupt, poorly put together asset flip game is so depressing. Their entire game, or the company's strategy, seems to be theft. And anybody who has played Palworld knows that this clearly isn't just an asset flip. That is it's insulting to what has been created, because it is something so much more. And then again, they just compared the designs. I mean, look, this is a sheep. It looks like a sheep. Pokemon made a sheep, and they made something that looks like a sheep. I don't know how you can make that similarity or that comparison. And then this one, again, they're comparing Palworld to Ark. And I don't think it's hiding any of this. And I think this is a future game, because they're going to be making something that looks very similar to Hollow Knight with their next experience. But again, none of this is really an indictment on Palworld, in my opinion. We have another one in which they say it isn't even just the stolen or borrowed content either. The entire game is comprised of the UE5 default assets and barely functional animations. The entire thing just reeks of pump this game out and make some quick millions before it dies off. And again, even if they use store-bought assets, that was never a problem with like the day before. It's just about making a functional and enjoyable experience, and that is exactly what Palworld is, in my opinion. And it seems like many millions of people. And then this is a thread in which they just compile all of the different Pals in Palworld and show how they look very similar to Pokemon. And here we are. We have one right here. It looks very similar in its design. I agree. This one again, another one, and we can go through them all. I'll just go through a couple. And I mean, yeah, the similarities are very obvious. I just don't think that this is really what are you trying to say about this? And I think if people are really that upset about Palworld's success and wanting Pokemon, or really coming to Pokemon's defense, I just think that maybe Game Freak should do better. Like I said, I just don't think that this is making the point that they think it is. But yeah, like I said, there's many. You can go through them all. I'm sure that they all look very similar in some capacity. This one, okay, here we go. Another one, very similar, sure. And it goes on and on. You guys kind of get the point of this. Now, this is another one, and like I said, it's not just Pokemon that they got their inspiration from. It's many different experiences. This one is an Elden Ring. As you can see, they got the temples. I actually went to this in some of the recent gameplay. Just played about an hour ago. The temples, yeah. Anyway, and then we do have another tweet here. This is a user bringing up the CEO's history, in which he actually talked about Nintendo, and he said that he didn't like their culture because they value originality. This is specifically what he said. I've always loved Nintendo games, and that hasn't changed. I also deeply respect him. However, when it comes to making games, Nintendo has a strong philosophy of creating new and unique games with high quality, and this was questioned at the Nintendo Game Seminar. On the other hand, I have a deep-rooted desire for my work to be enjoyed by as many people as possible, and to that end, if there are any good ideas in the world, I pick them up, and I don't necessarily have to be particular about originality. And I find the phrasing that this individual gave about this kind of ridiculous, because of the fact that there is no originality in this gaming industry. Ubisoft's entire Assassin's Creed formula is just ripped from what The Witcher 3 was years ago. And there's so many different games. They all jumped on the Battle Pass. They all jumped on Battle Royale because of Fortnite. There is no originality. Game developers are always borrowing, and that's how you make better experiences. I mean, hell, look at the Souls genre. It all exists because of what From Software created all those years ago with Dark Souls. So originality, I don't know, this individual is just being ridiculous with this complaint, but yeah, he just says, I'm thinking about it, I want to make it more casually, I think it would be a good idea to create things in a way that just jumps on what is trendy, and if that's his philosophy, it's working with Palworld, and hell, I've enjoyed it so far, and from the videos and a lot of the gameplay I've seen from later, and the more the endgame stuff that Palworld offers, I'm honestly more excited to see what this game is going to continue to offer, and it looks like it's going to be a blast. Like I said, the the outrage right now surrounding this game is enormous. Like, it's not just a couple of tweets that are going viral, it's all over. Just to give you an idea, like I said, it's a battle between some users, and we have this perspective. Palworld $30 games offer more content than $70 AAA cash grab, lets you create Western orcs or beautiful characters, freedom of choice, fun, no microtransactions or payment portals for any optional in-game purchases. And yeah, like, there's a lot of reasons to get excited about this game. Don't play Palworld. It's a Pokemon ripoff. Based on what I've seen, it's a ripoff that looks way more visually appealing. Also, the concept of Pokemon with guns is based as fuck. I agree, actually. But that Pokemon with guns, I do want to mention, that is something that comes later in the game. It's not something you have to work your way to it. But it's fun. It's an enjoyable gameplay loop getting to that point. And I have not gotten to that point yet. But I'm honestly excited to see how it is going to be when you get there. And it makes me so happy seeing Nintendo fumble such an easy bag. Pokemon on PC was the biggest untouched gold mine ever, and Palworld is grinding away at it right now, well deserved. Another tweet saying, Palworld is a deeply annoying kind of game to watch get popular, but if through some freak event it actually gets big enough to make Game Freak a little bit less complacent, that wouldn't be the worst thing. And I agree with the latter. Again, I don't think it's an annoying game, but that's just me. Another user saying Palworld feels like this year's Hogwarts Legacy. Yeah, the controversy definitely is comparable, where it's selling a bunch and is embroiled in a ton of online controversy, but after a month or so, it's barely going to be a blip on the internet radar. And I definitely can see that. Palworld's overwhelming success is the first step in the normalization of generative AI slop games, which is really, really depressing. 10 years ago, an asset flip game like this would have been relentlessly ridiculed, LOL. And again, 26,000 likes on this tweet, and it's ridiculous in my opinion, because this definitely isn't just an asset flip of a game. What's been angering me most is the amount of big YouTubers have been against NFTs and AI that are backing this. It's been very public over the last week that people that made this have been involved in all of that, on top of stealing assets from actual Pokemon games. Heads up to anyone thinking of supporting / playing Palworld who also cares about Gen AI issues. The CEO of that studio is full speed ahead of, he's been deep into this. We talked about this before. He loves his AI, and again, who cares? Another individual, again, bringing up the CEO's history. He's a major player in the world of cryptocurrency, has made games where the entire point is using generative AI, and the company's community managers lied about it. Don't purchase Palworld, don't Game Pass it, don't encourage this kind of thing. Just started playing this with friends last night, and I'm returning the game. Not only is it a complete ripoff of Pokemon designs, but the entire game is a visual mess. And now knowing they use Gen AI, I understand why. Again, no proof of that at all. We have another user saying, seeing several people say we should support Palworld so that Game Freak finally has competition in the monster collecting genre, when all of the streamers collectively ignored Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince last month, is going to be the start of my Joker arc. And then this is the one thread that really needs to be said, because it's actually coming from a game developer, the co-creative director at Arcane, Leon. He worked on Deathloop, Dishonored, and I think he kind of puts perfectly into perspective why a lot of the anger, the frustration, the complaints that are being thrown at Palworld's way, they're kind of idiotic. So Dinga Bakaba, I apologize, I hope I'm saying that right. He says he's surprised by a lot of the escalating anger, the controversy surrounding this game. He says what this game is, a survival game outwardly from the dev's mouth, inspired by Ark and Rust. Its main hook is how much it imitates, references, parodies, and efficiently blends designs and concepts from successful games. Pokemon, Breath of the Wild, Elden Ring, Minecraft, Fortnite at minimum. Sure, that is definitely there, especially the Breath of the Wild stuff when you're, the stamina, traveling, stuff like that. And then he goes on to say, game-wise, a shocking thing is no one is talking about how it is compared to Ark, Valheim, etc., how approachable it is. Anecdota for two of the friends I'm playing with, it's their very first survival game, and one is very casual, but in a couple hours we were all having a lot of fun. And I'm not really big on survival games. That's why I'm kind of shocked at how hooked I am into this. But it goes on to say, as a game designer, I'm baffled that some say this is lazy. Even if you copy an idea from another game, you can just copy / paste it. Even doing a sequel to your own game with the same program and a new engine, it takes crazy amount of time to develop a viable version 2.0 of a mechanic. And this new element, mechanic, art, concept, etc., now has to work together with a ton of other new things. Catching a creature to use it in combat exists in Pokemon, and then he mentions many other games that have it. Base building exists in Arc, but making sure it plays well together, the specifics of the 3C, feedback, balancing, etc., makes it that taking two things and smashing them together in a way that works and is approachable to mainstream players is not an easy feat. If only for that, I take offense in lazy being thrown out. Now, the Pokemon with guns. Did this game pretend it was anything else than a parody of Pokemon? It even has an angle with it. Here's the blind spot of your children fantasy, and it commits to the bit and mechanics, narrative art, etc. It's well made if you approach it candidly. And I agree with this completely. This is, I think, the best thread so far being given out by a game designer about Palworld, and it really kind of puts a lot of the complaints down. You know, it puts into perspective the problem with a lot of the issues that users have at this experience, and also a lot of the accusations that are going around right now just have zero proof to it. It just seems like a lot of people very nervous about the future of this video game industry in terms of AI use and such, and a lot of people feeling like a game that right now Palworld's success is going to be normalizing that stuff in the future, and I just don't think that's at all true, especially a game that just because the CEO says he's interested in that, I mean compare that to a lot of the other executives in this industry and the slimy shit they've always said. I don't think it really is an indictment on Palworld or Pocket Pair at all. But we do continue. We have this one. Massive copium. Palworld's success is proof that despite protestations, most people will cave and use an AI product because of some loophole. It's fun. It doesn't feel like AI, etc. It'll be a sad day when this happens on a wide scale for other creative endeavors, books, music, art. It sucks. Another user. Reading some of the Palworld discourse as an artist is very depressing. I didn't want to know this is how little some people care about artistic integrity. Another user, this one, saying Pocket Palworld's developers are practically built on copying, plagiarizing currently popular games / tropes, and Palworld is not the first. From a quality standpoint, Pocket Pair has a history of leaving games in buggy, unfinished states, all while charging a fairly high price point. And then again, they bring up the creator's history. We talked about these tweets just a second ago, and just because he has said this stuff doesn't mean it's at all related to Palworld or the content within the game. And again, until I see actual proof of it, this just is meaningless nonsense in my opinion. And then we have a number of tweets which go after IGN for bringing up this controversy. IGN phrased it like this, saying Pokemon fans are coming for Palworld, the Pokemon with guns game that is taking Steam by storm because they claim the designs are stolen and lazy. Some folks are on the other side and just want to start blasting away. And then this individual, which again 10,000 likes on this tweet, saying this is worded in such a bad faith way to make Pokemon fans look like coat babies. I'm not even going to entertain that. A lot of us don't care for the company and just think it's a really shitty and not acceptable that Palworld steals models and designs from both company artists and Fakemon artists and gets no repercussions. Okay, and then another individual saying no one here is defending the Pokemon company. These people are aspiring artists, and they are allowed to be upset over lazy work that got brought up to the spotlight with a massive player base over 24 hours. And then another tweet in which saying one thing IGN and Palworld have in common is they've tested my patience. Twisting words, this article is unprofessional and is targeted harassment against blah, 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 blah. They stole designs from Pokemon, Zelda, and even fans people are allowed to be upset. And then another individual saying suddenly it's not a problem because haha, funny Pokemon game. Something like this finding success normalize its use in the industry. So if you're against AI, now's your time to back that up. Another individual saying it's funny how we spent the last few months talking about YouTube plagiarism and AI stealing from creators being bad only to reward a game doing both with 2 million plus sales. It's actually 4. And ultimately, this leads me to what Richard Hogue of Hogue Law said the other day. This is the most important thing for all the accusations, people saying it's plagiarism, Nintendo has to sue them, this is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Well, here's a lawyer's perspective. Anyone can sue anyone for any reason, so I can't tell you what Nintendo will or won't do about Palworld. I can tell you, however, they'd have a tough time winning on any infringement claim that isn't arguing a direct-to-design copy. The game itself is a Minecraft, Zelda, Monster Hunter mashup unlike anything Pokemon has put forth, so there's no winning there. The PAL designs have elements that are similar to Pokemon, but even though they fly a bit close to the sun for my taste, that's a really hard case to win. Nintendo would be better served seeing what elements of the game might fit with its own brand. And I completely agree with that perspective. So ultimately what I think we have here, and I think it's pretty clear from all of the tweets that we've gone over within this video and what you guys have seen. It's just a ton of misinformation, and a lot of Pokemon fans, I think, just not understanding that they deserve better. They should be getting better from Nintendo and Game Freak, but the quality has stagnated for years. We have this tweet, which I think is a good summarization of what the problem is within the Pokemon community specifically. Pokemon fans are upset that Palworld has copied the monster designs, and so you shouldn't support it. It sold 2 million in a day. How about the opposite? It's fantastic news for Pokemon fans. Game Freak released Scarlet and Violet in an abysmal state, didn't fix it, and then mugged you off with glitchy DLC. They are laughing at the fan base who are now defending them. How about we let them panic and work harder on the next release? And I really do hope that Palworld infuses some inspiration, something inside of Game Freak to do better with their releases, because what we've been getting the last number of years, I think, is unacceptable, and they've been rewarded with millions upon millions of sales, and I get it, that is the casual crowd. You're not going to be able to stop that. But I do think that a success story like Palworld hopefully can do something to get Game Freak to change up how they're going about these releases, and maybe, you know, inspire them to add some of the certain features that are in Palworld into that game, into their future games. We'll see, but I just find it funny that these are the getting from Game Freak right now. It's just a Nintendo, and it's a Pokemon Scarlet and Violet tweet right now saying, "Did you catch that? Explore some hidden details within it." And yeah, of course, 800 comments and people just endlessly mocking them and bringing up Palworld. And personally, myself, as somebody who has just gotten so disappointed by so many different Pokemon releases over the years, I think it's just awesome for the overall gaming community to have a game like Palworld exist in the first place. Because if Pokemon's not going to do better, it's great that another development team did. And they created something that, in my opinion, is totally grand in so many different ways that I don't think we would have ever gotten from Nintendo and Game Freak, because I just don't think they are creatively interested in it. But on the specific part of Palworld stealing designs from so many different games, it also is worth mentioning that this is just the nature of this video game industry. Gene Park of the Washington Post bringing up Vampire Survivors, I think, is a great example. It copied its game design from Magic Survival, an Android game. Every old rock and roll song along has a 1/4/5 chord structure lifted from the Blues Masters, and yeah, we have this funny tweet saying, "Vampire Survivors, all your sweet Palworld, hello human resources," and this is just how video games are. Lifting game design from one game to another, that is how things work. Obviously, Palworld takes a lot of inspiration from many different games, but that's the big thing. It is parodying, it is satiring, and that is covered under fair use law. And that's why I don't think we've seen any legal action taken from Nintendo or any developer yet, and I don't think it is going to happen. And as those tweets from Richard Hogue of Hogue Law mentioned, there really isn't going to be a case. So anyway, are you playing Palworld right now? What do you make of the experience? Myself, I'm having a blast and really looking forward to investing many more hours into this and also seeing how it develops over time, because again, this is an early access game that is probably only going to be getting better into the future. And with so much revenue and profits being thrown pocket pairs' way, hopefully that, you know, means more stuff in the future, a better product, maybe more developers being brought in, more artists and such, and hopefully this game, you know, maybe it blows up even more into the future. Maybe it is the next Fortnite, maybe the next PUBG, who knows? But let me know your thoughts on all this down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.